Hello everybody, welcome to my YouTube channel. My name is Lucas M. Thomas, also known as LT Copywriting or RHM Real or your right-hand man in real estate. Today we're going to talk about why nobody likes you. And by what I mean by why nobody likes you is not the people who currently don't like you or the people who, currently like you. I'm talking about future people who may or may not like you. And the reality is, technically nobody likes you. So if you're going to go into an interview, that hiring manager doesn't know who you are and they technically don't like you, or they have no particular feelings towards you. Or if you're trying to build your own company, get investors, or you're trying to get new clients, nobody likes you technically because they don't know you, they never met you. So or if you're a salesperson, if you're a salesperson, I'm going to have to change the title of this from nobody likes you to everyone hates you. And if you're a salesperson, then you know that's an absolute truth of the business. Everyone hates you, and it's a really big and really huge uphill battle for you to overcome to get people to like you. And the reality is you have to be likable for people to do business for you. This goes as far as getting a job or being hired, because they hire you sometimes based on your skills, but most likely they're going to hire you based on whether or not they like you, and they find that out during the interview process, to finding new clients who, they'll give you money because, it might be the greatest idea on earth, but if they don't like you, they probably won't give you any money because, they feel like, oh, I don't want to do business with someone I don't like. Or if you're a salesperson, they immediately hate you, and the only way for them to do business or for you to make the sale is to get them to like you. A lot of people will disagree with me, but the thing is most people make their decisions whether or not to buy and whether or not they like the salesperson. I've seen countless times where, I've seen deals fall through just because they're like, oh, well, I don't like him, so I don't want to give him the satisfaction of the deal. I don't want him to get paid because I don't like him as a person. And you'd be amazed how many deals I've seen fall apart, all because somebody didn't like somebody in the relationship, either for trying to be hired, to trying to find new clients or new investors, to trying to make that sale. So although being a salesperson, it's a much harder process, the overall pretty much works for all three. So now let's get started. Let's talk about the first way to become more likable, or to be liked for your first interview, or starting or building your own company, or trying to make that sale. Number one is become more interesting. If you want to know how to become more interesting, it's not that hard. I mean, it sounds kind of abstract, but there really is 4 really easy ways to become more interesting. Let's go over them real quick. Number one is to be more well-read. What does well-read mean? It means that you read, interesting books that would be entertaining to whoever you're trying to impress. Not that because you're in the financial industry, you have to read economics. For me, I like to read philosophy books. I like to read classics. I pretty much like to read what I want to read, but the key here is you're actually learning, and you're reading, and you have knowledge about things that you can have the conversations with other people, and that's a great way to become more interesting, because you have interesting things to say about subjects they enjoy. And the more you read about, the more people you'll be able to have talks with, because you have a common interest, such as each one of you read that book, and then you get to talk about it. Another great way to become more well-read is if you don't like reading, because I know a bunch of my viewers right now, they just said, oh, Luke just told me to read. Well, you don't have to read. There's 2 other different ways to become more well-read. If you're more of a video or visual learner, you can actually watch more videos. You can watch documentaries. You can, pick another media format that will, still give you the information you need, but isn't going to bore you, so you don't do it. And then another way is one of my friends, what he likes to do is he actually likes to go out and make friends with subject matter experts of the subjects he is interested in. So if he wants to learn more about philosophy, he makes friends with a philosopher. And then he has really deep and intricate talks about, philosophy with that philosopher. So whenever he has these talks, he gets a better understanding from an expert who, this is what he lives, eats, and breathes all day. And that's another great way to become more well-read. Number 2 is to become more cultured. What does being more cultured means? Well, it means you need to leave where you are right now and need to go move to somewhere else where there's a different culture. This doesn't have to be another country. Going to another country is probably the best and most extreme way to become more cultured, because you leave behind what you know and you're going to experience something new. You might experience some culture shock, but even then, culture shock, that sounds like a good story to me anyway. So even if you go overseas and you get culture shock, I mean, at least that's an experience in and of itself, and you get another way of seeing how the other world lives, or seeing how other people. So it'll actually expand your mindset and allow you to see how other people see. And another great way to be well cultured, here's my personal favorite tip to being cultured, is be able to eat anything. If you can eat any food on the face of the earth, you will be loved in every country on earth. I've been to all sorts of different places, and as long as you eat their food, even if it's like if you go to a strange country and eat some strange food, as long as you eat that food and you're like, this is delicious, give me some more, those people will love you forever and ever and ever and ever. And and that's just one of the ways I like to do it. Not that it's the best, it's just a great little way that I like to become well cultured and be well liked in other cultures. And the next one's going to be having amazing experiences. If you let's say if you jump out of airplanes, or if you go to foreign countries, or you go to Canada a lot, or you have some sort of hobby that allows you to have amazing experiences. This is another great way to talk about yourself, or to have a common interest to talk to between you and your client, or you and your hiring manager, or whoever you're trying to get to like you, and that's a great way to do it, because even though they might not talk about it, they might want to know more about that. So if you scuba dive and your hiring manager or your client or your prospect's like, oh man, I always wanted to scuba dive, and then now you have a talking point about scuba diving. For some people, they like golf. I was never a big fan of golf, but I'm starting to learn, not because I want to, but because it's like one of my friends, he loves golf, and now I'm gonna take the hit. I'm going to start learning golf. I'm going to start liking golf, because it's an experience, and it's an amazing experience for a lot of people. And then there's number 4, which it kind of pulls all these together, or pulls them all together, is being a great storyteller. Because you could be the most well-read, the most cultured, and have had all the most amazing experiences on earth, but if you can't tell a great story, nobody cares. If you can't tell what you're trying to explain in such a way that's entertaining, and is in a format that people understand and they remember, then no one's gonna care. Other than that, you're just gonna be really, 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 really boring. You're the most well-read, cultured, an amazing experience, boring person, and it's because you don't have a way to communicate it in a way that people, that people enjoy and people like. And that's why, for me, my entire marketing is based off stories. My entire marketing system is storytelling marketing. I like to tell stories. If you know me in any shape or form, I always have a new story, or I always have something else to say. And it's not that I'm the most interesting person. I'm probably a really boring guy, but you know what? I can tell a hell of a story. So I'm pretty much really interesting, just because I know how to tell a story. And that's 4 real easy ways just to become more interesting and get people to like you rather than being not liked, which is what happens to a lot of people. Let's talk about reason number 2. Let's talk about the second way to overcome the fact that nobody likes you. The first one, or the first way that we talked about, was in fact. Now let's talk about the second way to get over the fact that nobody likes you, and put a very good first image in their head of who you are as a person, and become likable. And number 2 is to become amiable. This basically essentially is a attitude of being friendly, helping others out. Let's talk about the second way. Now let's talk about let's talk about the second way to get over the fact that nobody likes you and to put a very positive view of you on first impressions, as well as, getting that job you always wanted, or getting that next client, or getting that next investor. Number 2 is becoming amiable. What does that mean to you? It means that you need to be friendly, you need to treat people as people, you need to be a provider, or help people out when they need help. And then number 3 is to maintain good relationships. Now let's go over those real quick. Number 1, of course, is to treat people as people. What does that mean? It means that you shouldn't treat them as subhuman, or or just be mean to them. You shouldn't bully them. You shouldn't, you should treat them with respect and have a healthy respect for other people and how they live their lives. The next one is to become a provider. What does that mean to you? It means that if you're a provider, if someone comes to you and they say, "Hey, Luke, I need help," I'm going to be like, "Okay, cool, I'll totally help you." And that's a great way to become amiable and to maintain, which is the third one, is to maintain good relationships. Because if you're the expert and you have all the answers to their questions, or if you've done something before and they're coming to you, that means you're in a good position to, in a good position to be amiable, to be promoted, to, have good relationships with everybody around you. And that's a great way to become amiable or get hired, because people like having those people around. Because instead of, because nobody likes mean people, and if you're mean and you don't do these things, then of course you're either going to get singled out, you're going to get fired, and that's not a great way. Or if you're mean in the very beginning, they're going to know this, and you're not even going to get hired, or they're not even going to let you in the door if they already know that you're mean. So, and then number 3 is to maintain good relationships. So to maintain good relationships, this means that just treat people as people. Help them when they need it, and then always, try to maintain that friendship or that coworker, that acquaintance coworker, by either, going out. Another big thing is, like, if people want to go out and, go out for a drink or go out for dinner, you should be a part of that, because that is a great way to maintain. It's a great way. Well, if you're in business, which if you have a job, you're in business. If you don't do those networking things, you're going to have a really hard time getting promoted or getting new clients, or or making that sale, because the number one way to maintain to maintain all these relationships is wine and dining. It means going out with them. It means going out and doing golf trips. You don't have to be friends, but you do have to maintain a relationship. So that there's goodwill between the two of you, and you have each other's back. And that's like a real major reason why number 2 is you have to become amiable, and this will really help you getting over the fact that nobody likes you. All right, now let's talk about the third way to get over the fact that nobody likes you. The third way is become irresistible. Now, how do you become irresistible? There's actually 3 different ways to become irresistible. Number 1 is have a fun personality. Number 2 is become charming. And then number 3 is be confident, because unless you use confidence, none of these will work. Confidence is the key to pull all this together. So, real quick, let's go over these 3 on how to become irresistible. So number one is to have a fun personality. For me, I'm a fairly entertaining guy. I have my heart on my shoulder, and I'm pretty blunt and truthful, and I'll tell you how I see it and how it works. And that's why I've been really successful in my business, because people, not only am I entertaining, but I'm also really good at my job. And that is what has made me successful, because if you're just good at your job, that's half the battle, because if you aren't entertaining or don't have a fun personality, people won't hire you unless you use the expert personality, which says, well, you have to hire me because I'm the most expert ever. Then you're not really using any sales. Your sales tactics is essentially that you have more knowledge than anyone else, which that's why you pay extra. But that's for other people. But the reason is that you need to have a fun personality is because every day I meet people who are boring. And if you ever know anything about boring people, they don't really get promoted, they don't really get hired, they don't really do anything at all. Unless that's your strategy to get hired, which is like, hey, I'm boring and I will never leave your company. I will never ask for any raises. I will never become a problem for you, if that's your strategy to get hired, then that's actually a really great strategy to get hired. Or, well, it's not very good for getting investors or making a sale, but it is in fact a great way to get hired and then to stay at that position for the next 30, 40, 50 years. If that's really what you're trying to accomplish, then don't try any of this, because you might be successful. Oh, anyway, so Number one is have a fun personality. This could be like being really positive or being entertaining or, being a jokester. If you're funny will actually open a lot of doors for you. Because I know lots of funny people who are like, hey, because I'm funny. They hire me because I'm funny, not because I'm any good at my job. I've seen countless times where I've seen funny people, they have mediocre work, but they're fun and they're humorous. So they get the job and then they keep the job because it's like, hey, we don't want to fire him. We like him. It'll hurt if we have to get rid of him. And there's all sorts of different personality types. I mean, you just need to figure out what your personality type is, and once you know, you need to figure out how to make that fun. And for some people, it's I'm fun because I'm positive. Some people, it's like I'm fun because I'm negative. It's all how you need to portray yourself individually. But in the end, you have to use that fun personality to get people to like you and to get promoted or get that investor or get that sale. So that's number one of how to become irresistible. Number two is you need to become charming. Now, how does one become charming? It's actually really, really easy. The easiest way to become charming is you just need to maintain good body posture. So you need to maintain good eye contact. What does that mean? It means that you make eye contact with somebody. It's not 100%. It's not death stare. It's not. You don't glare at people, but you maintain good eye contact, look away when you need to, and that's pretty much all it is to get people to listen to you and to say, hey, I'm not only listening to you, we're actually communicating. And that's a great way to be charming. Number two is you need to be able to smile a lot. So a lot of people, everybody in the world, they love people who smile. And the more you smile, the more positively you'll look in other people's eyes. And if you want to be more charming, you gotta smile a lot, and then you have to make good eye contact. Next up is you need to be a good conversationalist. And this shouldn't be a problem for you, because if you follow number one, which is become more interesting, then if you're well-read, you're cultured, you're a good storyteller, then you shouldn't have any problem in being a good conversationalist. Because the truth is about the world is, if you suck at small talk, you suck at life. And you really need to get really good at small talk, because, if you don't have anything to talk about, it gets awkward, then people don't like you, and then, you get ostracized or, bullied and everything like that. So the reality is you need to get good at small talk. It's just the truth of life. Because if you're in business, you need to get good at small talk. If you're not good at small talk, if you're being hired, even with interviewers, they like people they can talk to, they can communicate with. So the more that you're able to small talk and the more you're able to be a good conversationalist with that person, especially interviewers, they're going to love you. I've had interviews before. This is before I became a business owner and I was looking for a job. My interviewers would love me. They'd actually talk about everything but the interview, because most interviewers hate the formal process of an interview. They hate the questions, because what the hell does, what is your greatest weakness? What does that really tell about somebody? Well, nothing really. It's like, so tell me an answer that is canned, that you've been rehearsing for the last 2 months to get this job. And for me, I'm just like, and for most of my interviews, we don't even really talk about the interview anymore. We end up talking about things that are completely unrelated, and people love that. Some of them hate that, but for me, that's just what works for me, is being able to talk about anything. And the more well-rounded you are, the more easier you will be able to talk to anybody. Because when you're talking to interviewers or investors or sales prospects for sales, you need to have something in common, and the more you know and the more knowledge you have and the more well-read you are and the more cultured you are, the more ways you'll find, common ground with who you're talking to. And then once you find common ground, the conversation will just flow. And that's the key here. And then Number 3 in how to become irresistible is to be confident. You can do anything and you can do anything. You can do all these. You could become well-read. You could become a good storyteller. You could become amiable. You can become a good person with good relationships with a bunch of people. But if you're not confident in what you say, then people are not going to believe what you're saying, or they're not going to be confident that you're confident. And that's the thing. People respect confident people, or people, promote confident people. And that's why for you and for everybody else, if you really want to get past the fact that nobody likes you, you really need to become confident. And that's just being confident in yourself, what you're saying, what you're doing, no second guessing. And if you follow and if you have that confidence, and the cool thing is the other things that we do here, that if you become more interesting, become more amiable, you'll actually become more confident, because you'll be like, oh yeah, well, I know this stuff, and I am this stuff, you know what I mean? So and there you go. That's how, and the whole point of becoming more irresistible is to leave them wanting more. Because let's say you go to an interview and you could impress the interviewer all you want, but unless they want more, they're not gonna bring you back for a second interview. They're gonna be like, well, I can pretty much sum that guy up. I only talked to him for about 15 minutes, but I can pretty much sum him up. This is the type of person he is, and that's what you don't want. You want to be able to see. You want them to be. You want to be able to be like, oh, hey, yeah, no, I only talked to that person for 15 minutes. That's only the tip of the iceberg. I want to invite him back for a second interview, because I just want to know more about him and want him to be. And the more they want to know about you, the more likely you're going to become a part of that company. Same thing with investors. Same thing with investors. You want them wanting more. So if you're spitting your tail, or telling your story, and they're like, well, that's a great story and all, but I really don't want any more. I've had my fill. They're just going to leave you. They're just going to leave you hanging. But if they hear your story and you leave them hanging, got a cliffhanger, and it's like, hey, and we could what could we do? And then they're going to call you back within an hour, being like, hey, so what could we do? Well, we can make lots of money together. All you got to do is give me X, Y, and Z, and I will provide X, Y, and Z, and then X, Y, and Z will happen, and then you're good. You got your investor. Or for sales, once you hit that common ground, it's you want them wanting more. It's like if they want the product, they need to want the product even more after you're done selling it, or they need it now, or they want to talk to you more. They might not even want the product, but they just might want to just talk to you because just the way you make them feel. And that's the key here, is you got to get people to want more after talking to you, and they're going to be like, well, he's a really interesting guy. He's a really interesting guy, or she's a really interesting girl. I need to know more about her or him. And that is the best way to get hired, to do sales, and to get investors on your side. So now let's get to the conclusion. And there you have it. In conclusion, all I have left for you is Joe the Everyman. If you don't know about Joe, he's one of my characters in one of my article series that is on www.ltanswers.com. If you don't know about Joe, you can click the link to go to his articles in the description below. So therefore, if you need to know more about Joe used all of these principles to overcome and become successful overall at his job, at his life, and he used, and that's the key here, is that he used these principles to overcome, and that's what you need to do. And if you want to learn more, just subscribe to my channel or click the link in the description below, and you too can become Joe the Everyman.